Okay, welcome back everyone to Strange Planet Podcast. And as I always say, it's never a dull week in America. But before we get to the meat of the main message of the episode here, I wanted to bring something that at first I thought was a joke, but it turned out it's not a joke, and it is actually very true. There is a video game by some, I actually didn't catch the developer, but it's called
Secret
Operation.
Handshake.
Is that what it was called?
No, the name of the developer is Secret Handshake.
Secret Handshake was. Oh, so there you go. It was developed by them. They came up with a game called Operation Epic Furious. And basically, it is an entire game, arcade style, old school, kind of like, the 16-bit era, kind of, dipping into that old school 80s, 90s kind of vibe, where you play as Donald Trump in the White House, believe it or not. And you do what he does in real life, which is nothing. But you can order Diet Cokes, and then there's a terminal behind the White House, the desk there, and there's a computer or some kind of fireplace where you can burn Epstein files. And apparently we know that there's millions of them, but you can only burn them one at a time. So every time you burn one, it actually tells you how many you have left. And then it's all of that and more. And then you could even leave the White House and then go to Iran. And then JD Vance shows up. It's pretty freaking hilarious. Did I get any real hands-on with it yet? No, because of work and life, but it's likely this weekend I will probably take a gander on it. I would recommend you do too if you want a good cheap laugh at our joking clown of a president. And yeah, speaking of people have said, well, could you cheat to win? Is there a game genie for it or something? He cheats at everything, so that already probably comes included with the package. So now to pivot to where we're going with this. Yeah, speaking of cheating, gerrymandering suddenly becomes a big American tradition all of a sudden. And it seems like it's only okay if the Republicans do it. If the Democrats do it, then all of a sudden, all hell breaks out, right? And it's funny because if you remember as well as I do, for the past, give or take, 15 years at least, there was only one party that's been trying to get rid of gerrymandering. And that would be the Democratic Party, from what I've collected at least. So, guys, what do you think about not only that hilarious video game, but the situation here with the gerrymandering as well?
I'll let you go first, Brooke.
Well, as far as the video game goes, it's a little bit, I haven't played it yet, but I'm a huge gamer, so I'm looking forward to getting into it. And you just showed it to me today.
Yep.
I think it's hilarious. And
it is.
There's just, I'm sure there are things that, if you are aware politically, it's going to, make you laugh at different points from what I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Worth the play. As far as redistricting goes, I mean, we are at a point where it's just, sort of a race to the bottom in terms of which states can, shape their electorate in a way that benefits a single party. And, you can talk about, both sides are doing it now, and that's true. However, one side and one side alone has started this, and I think that's important to recognize.
Of course.
So for years, the Democrats have not done, anything in terms of responding to Republican, tampering with elections in terms of trying to suppress votes and outright, stop people from voting. So you had, the 2020 election, which, Trump didn't lose, right? You had, for years before that, you had gerrymandering and suppression of votes, like especially in swing states. And I think that, Democrats, just kind of, they complained about it, but, didn't really do anything about it. They tried, but I think this all comes down to when the Supreme Court had chances to weigh in. Not only did they not do anything about this, they enabled it. Um, by gutting our Voting Rights Act, different portions of it over the years, and now with this latest one, what's really left of it. But I think the preclearance requirement, which was under Section 2, I believe, that they voided, you know, maybe a decade or so ago, maybe a little more than that now. It was basically to say that, okay, these states that have a history of changing the rules to suppress the votes of black people and minorities, and if you're going to change the rules of the elections before an election, you have to send it to the Department of Justice for review and to see if it complies with the law. Oh, now, this isn't like saying that there's a different law for each state. It's saying that, okay, these states have a history of abuse and violating the law. And so we're not going to let them change the rules before an election and then say, like, after the election already happened, oh, well, it's too late.
Right.
Because by then it is too late. Someone may have violated election rules. One party may have violated it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Except for after the fact saying, oh, well, next time, we're not going to have those rules. And then they could just make up some other rules and pass that again before the next election. So to stop that silliness, they had a rule where, okay, these states that have a history, and it's, mostly states, but then there are some like segments of within states. So like New York, I think, has a certain portion of New York is subject or was subject to that rule. And, they had to say, well, if you have a history of changing the rules of an election before an election to, essentially suppress minority voters. So we're not going to let you do that. You have to submit your rules to us to the Department of Justice in advance to pre-clear them, to say that, okay, well, yeah, we're looking at these rules that you're proposing. They're not crazy. Okay, go ahead, hold the election under these rules. All other states that, aren't subject to preclearance still must comply with the law, but they don't have to do so ahead of time in terms of submitting it to the Department of Justice, because they haven't had a history of repeatedly violating, the law.
Right.
The Supreme Court was like, nope, we're not going to have that anymore. Basically saying that, racism is over, and we're not going to, even though the Voting Rights Act was, passed not only on a bipartisan basis, it was passed and then renewed and renewed and renewed by Congress, the people, that we elect and send to represent us. When the Supreme Court overturned it, it was recently renewed by Congress almost unanimously. I think there was maybe like one vote against it, and it was on, I think, like libertarian grounds or something like that. But it's like ridiculous, because the Supreme Court at that point said that, no, we know better than Congress, which is to say we know better than the people when racism is over, and we're going to declare it over ourselves. And you know what? We're going to get rid of this law that was put in place to protect the vote. And ever since then, that emboldened the Republican Party to just try more and more things And you know what? They've gotten away with them. And we get to this whole redistricting thing where, before, and according to our Constitution, you have a census. I, I forget whether the exact words are from time to time. Um, it might be something nebulous like that,
Hmm.
but every decade has been, the standard. Every decade you take a census and figure out, how much, what's the population of each state so that they can figure out how to apportion, uh, representatives. So if your state gains people, you might get another representative. If they lose people, might get one fewer representative. So, there are changes in terms of population because you want, states with higher population to be more represented in Congress, or at least the House of Representatives part. The Senate, all states have two. That was a compromise that was made at the beginning of, the country,
Right, right, right.
where, the Senate was every state is equal. They have two senators. And then on the other side is the House, which said that, okay, the population, if you know, if you have 50 million people in your state, I'm just throwing out a number, you should have more of a say
Right. You
than,
would think.
5 million people.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and so, once the Supreme Court started to, not only, you know, ignore um abuses by the Republican Party, but to enable them
Right.
by removing safeguards.
Hmm.
This just allowed, the Republicans to advance and become more emboldened and to take more and more action. And now we're at a point where we're just going to say, okay, well, we're not going to wait 10 years. We want to win the next election.
Yeah, we're gonna do it
So we're
now.
going to blatantly redraw our district to make it favorable to Republicans.
Yeah, to favor themselves.
Now, there's also another difference in terms of, and Democrats have like really no choice. They can either say like, Supreme Court, try to get a case up to the Supreme Court and say, hey, this isn't allowed, but they're allowing it. So the other thing is like, they haven't, so the Democrats, now that they've decided, okay, we're going to fight back by doing it ourselves. The difference is that they put the vote to the people.
Right. It's a key
They
difference.
so they in California and Virginia, they put a referendum on the ballot for the public to vote on whether or not they should redistrict in this way. And the voters spoke and they said, sure, go ahead, do that. They understood, that that's what needs to be done to, because um it's not just like a partisan thing. It's okay, these states are going to um have more concentrated power with a political party um in each state. So it's kind of, you know, if your state is represented by one political party and another state is cheating to gain more representatives to, go against the thing that your state needs and that your state wants, then it's not just like a partisan thing. It's more of a like you're kind of diminishing the power of my state
Hmm.
in Congress because, if it was reflecting the true demographics of their voters, there would be a little, diversity in terms of, the representation. You
Right,
know,
right.
all the representatives of that state wouldn't necessarily think the same way and
Right.
support the same things.
Exactly.
So it's just like Democrats are like put in this horrible position where they either have to do nothing or they have to play this game.
Right.
But at least they're, playing this game in a way that, is a little more fair. You're asking the voters themselves
For
what they
real.
want to do. Whereas Republicans are just like, we're going
They
to
just do
rewrite
it.
the rules and ignore it. Even if
Yeah.
our state constitution expressly forbids it, we're just going to do it
Yeah,
anyway.
find a way around it, you know?
And the Supreme Court, they just sit there and do nothing
Yeah.
or enable
Enablers.
it.
Yeah, for real. That is, yeah, that's sickening if you think about it. But the realization of the whole thing though is I'm glad that they actually are stepping up to the plate, because if they were not to, you would just be handing them the election practically by letting them redraw, like whatever in that case. Because like if you have to fight fire with fire in this fight, and that seems like it's what they're up to, you know. And Mark, what do you think about this gerrymandering situation? And you could comment about the hilarious video game while you're at it.
Well, getting the game out of the way, it looks hilarious. I like the kind of almost Pokemon-esque feel with the top-down view. I mean, everything in that is absolutely on the nose, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But getting to the gerrymandering situation, I mean, I don't want to say this is typical GOP because they've been doing this kind of stuff for years with the gerrymandering. It's just now it's way more in the open. Like they used to do it every 10 years. Now they're doing it whenever they want to. So, and the double standard is really off the charts. Where places like Virginia, where they did the redraw maps, the voters voted on it, and the Supreme Court said, "No, we're GOP. We're not going to take that."
I mean, sadly, that's true.
So, it's unfortunate for those whose ballots won't get counted because it's going to be this midterms is going to be a fiasco. It's going to be one of the biggest shit shows you've ever seen because this is basically going to be the prelude to the next election
2
where
years
Trump's
later.
going to try to, for lack of a better term, stuff the ballot box. Because he's definitely going to make a play for it. He's going to try to make it legal, and then he's going to try to friggin' stuff otherwise. He'll even go past when he's supposed to leave and say, "No, I'm still president," and then continue being the dictator that he is today. Only worse. But as for the gerrymandering thing, it goes to show you what they will do to win without actually, attending to the people they're supposed to govern. To them, it's all about the power. It has nothing to do with helping people.
And about winning. Yeah. I mean, they just want to keep that power. That's it. It's sad, but it's true. Yeah. And it couldn't be more clear as day at this point. That's the sad part. Like
it's crazy. I mean, Trump is so out of the box, like with it, almost like what was that? The King Nero was the one that was naked, or whatever. The emperor has lost his clothes. That's basically what's going on, and everyone's just kind of like, not saying anything. But at the same time, it's just like we're losing this country to the idea of a narcissist who only cares about him.
Yeah, we're losing democracy too.
Yeah, I mean,
and once something like that goes, that's very hard to get back to the way things were. And the funny thing I actually want to add to this is that like you would think by now. I mean, I think generally, especially the past couple of months, there's been a lot of like awakenings, even with the special MAGA base there. They're a little slow and behind on things, but like all the idiots that decided to go for that Trump mobile, I think they finally realized that they got scammed because they didn't get the phone, they didn't ship them, but they got the money. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that was basically like responding to that. Your car's extended warranty is expired, and
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's basically what just happened to them. Now, whether or not it's still going to come out remains to be seen. But as for right now, put it this way: anybody that actually was dumb enough to go for that you basically just handed him whatever the price tag said, because I don't see it ever coming into formation, not at this rate. I mean, that was like last year, wasn't it too? Like,
something like that.
yeah, like that's been a while. You would think if that was official, it would have already been out by now. And it's funny because that was something which was a product for his moronic base. But then, like, when it's something that affects him directly, like that Truth Social bullshit, you notice how quick that came out, though, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you see the difference there, right? So, you know what I mean? Here we are, and I guess I'm going to say that there's a good third of this country that still got their head in the dirt, but slowly I think the ostriches are pulling their head out. So we need more, but you know what I mean? But
Yeah, but
this is
I think it may be too little, too late.
could be.
We're at a crossroads where this man can pretty much almost do anything he wants, and the fact that I'm so disappointed in the Supreme Court that the fact that they're just letting this go on and
Yeah,
encouraging
they're
it all,
enabling it. It's true at this point.
and I curse Mr. McConnell
Oh,
for I won't swear in a new judge because it's the last 6 months of a presidency. It's just like,
No, it was more than 6 months.
but
I think
yeah,
it was
I think it
more
was.
than
I
that.
think it was in like January.
some shit. It's just like, oh no, almost the end of the presidency. It's like, dude, I have another.
Yeah, he had almost a year.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And then Trump president, what, 2, 3, maybe?
Yeah, for real though. Was it? Yeah, it was 3, I think, in total.
Hmm.
And they had no waiting on that. And then the crazy thing about that time period too was RBG was one of the ones he replaced, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. And they waited 3 days, I think, or 4 days after her death before they filled that slot. And then they made, you know what I mean? They made Obama wait. Like, like I don't get, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, the whole thing is so in the like open right now of how corrupt everything's become. And like, look at Trump. He's a prime example. His half of his crimes that he's done was on live television, and yet nobody makes a move. Nobody makes a sound. And I feel like that right there is part of the reason why some of the remember I said the 1/3. I still feel like that's the reason why some of them might be clinging on, because they don't see anybody getting penalized. I mean, the Epstein files came out too. Well, not they didn't come out. They partially, I'm going to say, came out, fully redacted, of course.
Of
But
course.
yeah, did you see anybody, any convictions, anything going on there? Of course not.
No, because
Yeah.
The Justice Department is also corrupt.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you allow this rhetoric to become normalized, what are laws anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be for the rest of us common folk, but I guess it's the kind of thing where if you're a billionaire or a millionaire, well, probably more billionaire, it basically gives them the freedom to do whatever they want. And I guess the Supreme Court laws, all that stuff just kind of poof goes that way, and nobody seems, to care, regardless to how heinous the crimes are. Clearly, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I just never thought I would see this in America, to be honest, because this country, to me, at least at one point, was always about integrity, like morals, and generally doing the right thing.
Always. Ooh, I
Well,
don't know
maybe
about
not
that.
always. Yeah, good at it. Good at it. Yeah, good at it.
it
Far from always. Yeah, but I feel like that was the incentive that they were trying to be.
liked to say that it was.
Yeah, exactly. But that was the motive that at least they were trying to strive towards. They may not have been very great at it over the years, but I feel like right now is at its all time, like, this is terrifying what's been going on now. And like, I can see a lot of people are pissed, including even some of his clown base, because your grocery prices are still through the roof. The war is still going on. Gas is still going through the roof. And it's making Biden actually look like a rock star in the end. Now, I'm not going to say he was, the greatest president in the world, but I would take him back in a heartbeat over this fucking clown that we have now. And it just, the hypocrisy of the whole thing is another thing that cracks me up. Remember, they were saying, oh, Sleepy Joe and this, that, and the third. This motherfucker's over here passing out on a daily basis in major meetings,
Yeah.
but not a peep from Fox News there or anywhere else, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and they
Yeah, like, it
complained
just blows my mind.
they
Like,
complained about gas prices and food prices.
right?
They're
All
higher
quiet on the
now.
Western Front now, right? Like I don't get this. I feel like, remember Pee Wee Herman? The secret password is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
When you
that's
hear it, scream real loud. Oh!
screaming out loud, right? Yeah. Like, yo, for real though. Like, I never thought I would see this to this extent. And then
It,
just the people dumb enough to go along with it. Like, you know what
it's
I mean? Like, there's plenty fighting back and
the
more power to them.
the
But like,
biggest problem that I think we have in this country is that the powers to be to correct any of this has also been corrupted. So the checks and balances routine, where the executive branch checks this and the judicial branch checks that, and they all kind of like are supposed to work together to keep an eye on each other. But when you control all three, it's just like why?
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. And then it allows them the freedom to do what they please. And that's unfortunately what we're seeing at this point.
Yeah,
Because like we've never, I mean, I'm sure there's been times where the situation has been similar to what not like directly, but the fact of that they have the House, the presidency, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But to see this much like abuse of power and even like having ICE on the streets, like we were saying, they're going after citizens too. It's just like if you don't look like what they want, which is probably pale white, you know what I mean? Then you could be in trouble. You know what I mean? You're lying, whether you're a citizen or not at this point. And to
yeah.
me, that's beyond fucked up. You know what I mean? But like, someone's got to do something at some point. But on another note, just to clarify, I wanted to clarify something else real quick. But like, it's funny because like a lot of the times, even we've talked on this podcast, and I'm sure many others do it as well too. But we all say that the Supreme Court sucks. Now, don't get me wrong, it fucking does, and it's corrupt as hell. But like, technically, isn't a lot of the work and a lot of the stuff to be passed supposed to be done in Congress? So like, shouldn't we be on them more than we are on the corrupt Supreme Court?
Well, exclusively, Congress has the power to make laws. The president's job is to either sign those laws or to veto them. And then if, they're passed over his veto or he signs them, he's supposed to faithfully execute them. The Supreme Court's job is to interpret the law, not make the law, but
That
interpret it and then rule on whether or not, it's being complied with. The Supreme Court in as I said earlier, with the Voting Rights Act, decided to make the law. The
mm,
Congress passed the law, and the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. Now, Supreme Court, it rules things unconstitutional all the time.
yeah,
That's its job to decide the constitutionality of a law.
right.
But here, it was not deciding on whether it complied with the Constitution, like in terms of, you know, its language or whatever. It was deciding as a policy matter that, okay, Congress is just going to keep renewing this law and there's no longer a reason for it. That was their reasoning. Congress is going to keep passing the Voting Rights Act, and these specific sections of the Voting Rights Act, there's no longer a reason for them. We're just going to say they're no longer constitutional, even though Congress passed them. And even though Congress is in a better position to judge, whether the conditions that necessitated this act are ongoing or not. Like the Supreme Court decided to substitute its judgment for the judgment of the people. That's what
Imagine
it
that.
did when it
Yeah.
did that.
Wow. That's wow.
Because
Because
it
that's
wasn't it wasn't saying, this law is on its face unconstitutional. It was saying we assess, the condition of the country and that times have changed, and therefore, this is no longer necessary, therefore it is unconstitutional. That
that's
is
a
not,
Jesus.
conservatives like railed against judges making the law or whatever. This is even worse. This is judges like deciding what the conditions are in the country, which is, something that people through their elected representatives, that's their job. Okay. That's because we're the people, we experience, the effects of all the laws and, the conditions that, the law imposes on people.
Mm.
And so we are in the best position to know that, not the Supreme Court.
Yeah, for real.
And
So
that is something that, um, John Roberts will, go down in history um, for substituting his judgment for the people in a way that is a disgusting abuse of power at the Supreme Court level.
yeah, that's right, 100%. And that's the reason why I brought this up, because, like, don't get me wrong, we should be, getting pissed off at the corrupt Supreme Court as it is, but realistically, we should be equally as mad, if not even more pissed, at Congress too,
Well,
because
look, Congress is us. We don't get out and vote. Like, Congress is a symptom of the country, of the people of this country, most directly. Trump too, yeah, I mean, he's directly elected.
yeah,
Trump too. But like, people are upset. They don't know what they want, so they keep electing, you know, a president of one party, then a president of
of
the other,
another.
giving Congress to one party, then taking away and giving it to the other. The country as a whole is confused and they're angry and they're throwing a tantrum.
Yeah. But the problem is
Um,
they're falling for false prophets, because that's the thing. They thought that this clown, you know what I mean, considering he was a businessman, which he's a failed businessman, and they thought, considering he was an outsider and not an actual politician, that he would actually represent the people and what their needs were. What they didn't know is that he's a rapist, a felon, a potential pedophile, and he's
no,
really
they
only
did
out
know
for
that.
himself.
They did
Well,
know that.
well, they probably good. I mean, they'd be pretty fucking stupid at this point if they didn't know it. Yeah, that's a good point.
No,
Because
they
that's
knew
pretty
that.
transparent. Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, right there. But knowing all of those
At
things,
least by his second term, yeah,
right?
yeah. By the before the election, that was pretty clear.
The funny thing about it, though, well, the sad thing I should say about it is that, though, knowing this, you actually think like this kind of a person is going to represent you and your needs and what you needed.
He doesn't represent me, I'll tell you
No,
that.
no, well, not you specifically, but you know what I mean, like to the average Trump,
I
voter.
represent myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
which I like, I hear you. I'm like, I hear that too. But like, to their sake, you know what I mean? Like, usually when you're in, no matter what, if it's president, whether it's something local or whatever, if you're going to vote for somebody, it's because you think that person will not only make your life maybe a little bit better, but possibly the city, the town, and for the president's sake, you would think the country. You know what I mean? But like, you go to somebody like that and you think that he's going to care about like you or any of us, because so
Well,
far there hasn't been anything passed that affects any of us in a positive way. However, if you're a billionaire, you are cashing in right now. So
well,
that's what they voted
what's
for.
even more infuriating?
What's that?
It's been reported recently that uh Trump may get a settlement from the IRS.
For what?
What?
So he sued the IRS while president, for, I guess, leaking his tax returns. The tax returns that showed that, unlike what he told us, he didn't actually pay taxes
Right, right.
or paid very little taxes, and a lot of years paid no taxes.
Yeah, it was a lot of years was none. It was zero.
So, I don't know what the circumstances were, but somehow, the media got a hold of his tax returns. Now, that could have been through the IRS. It could have been through, maybe an accountant that had access to him, or some other, entity that had his tax returns. But even if it was the IRS, like, fuck that. You're going to be president and put pressure on, you know, a, a, a governmental instrument that you control and
Right.
say, pay
Right.
me
Yeah,
with
for
my
real.
fucking tax dollars.
Yeah. Imagine
Fuck
that.
that. Fuck that. I will
Yeah.
not send a fucking dime to
Mm.
that motherfucker. I'm sorry. If not, like, you know what I'm gonna do? if they get a settlement, I'm going to take that settlement, divide. I mean, it's going to be nominal. It's not going to be that much.
Right.
I'm going to take that settlement and divide it by the number of taxpayers in this country. And I'm going to say I'm withholding my portion of that because I am not paying for that. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit.
I'm
I
not.
don't want to either. That's bullshit is what that is.
I'm not going to pay for it.
And all right, everyone. That's all we got for this week on Strange Planet Podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, as new episodes will always be every Friday on YouTube. And we'll see you next week. Peace. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Peace.